Stories that we are, of course, focusing on today. We'll be crisscrossing the country and, of course, getting reactions and, of course, updates in regard to various stories that we are following up today. And a very interesting one is the relaunch of Amboseli National Park. This is an effort to bring back more tourists to national parks at a time when the tourism industry has taken a major hit because of COVID-19. It will be an interesting event there that we are watching to see exactly what happens there. And of course, domestic workers' welfare, they will be having a briefing, of course, to highlight some of the challenges they've been going through pre- and post-coronavirus. And it will be interesting to hear what exactly they're going through. And this morning, of course, our usual interviews, we are focusing on building sustainable systems for early warning to mitigate against food insecurity, not only in urban areas, but of course in the rural areas. And this discussion, we are having it with Dr. John Kitui. He's a country director for Oxfam Kenya. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Kitui, for finding time to be with us. When Oxfam launched, the sustainable early warning systems back in the year 2017, the world was different from how we know it today. What has changed?
Thank you very much for having me. So COVID-19 has changed the world fundamentally. It is both worsened inequality between the rich and the poor, for example, but also made even those who are poor more vulnerable to some of the shocks in the world. In some parts of Kenya, for example, when you go to arid and semi-arid lands, communities are facing the triple tragedy of both having the locust invasion, the floods and the drought in some parts, and then COVID-19 itself. And as is expected, food security has been a major issue. So in July, a food security assessment that was done showed that about 55% of households were food insecure, severely food insecure. That translates to about 1.5 million just in Nairobi.
Just in Nairobi?
Itself. Yes.
And when you talk about severe food insecurity, what exactly do you mean?
It just means that people cannot be able to put on the table 3 meals a day. So people had to adjust. Either you take 2 meals a day, you take 1 meal a day, or you change even the whole diet that you are taking. It's no longer a balanced diet. So, for example, we know that pre-COVID, there were about 40,000 children who are already severely acute malnourished in Nairobi. So if you have such numbers already, you add on to that the food insecurity, that children are not eating enough, I'm sure those numbers have gone up.
And, I mean, in a country whereby, close to 45% of the population, they live below the poverty line, in the sense that they make or they earn less than 250 shillings, on a daily basis. So why then would that be news that a lot of them cannot afford to put 3 meals on the table? I mean, that has been the norm for the longest time.
I think the important thing to realize is that we all operate with some form of resilience somehow. When you talk about resilience, is that when shocks come in life, you have some ability to cope. If you are well off in society, you have coping mechanisms. You have land, you have maybe diversified livelihood options, you have more jobs, you have savings as well, or you have more income that's more disposable. So if you are earning very little money, you don't have a lot of flexibility when shocks happen. And when COVID-19 came between February and March, all of a sudden people are told you don't have jobs. And they don't have a lot of resilience to that matter. And especially when you look at the people who live in the urban informal settlements, they don't have a lot of leeway to adjust for some of these shocks like COVID-19. And that's why when COVID-19 happened, the ability to cope, the ability to just put food on the table became very, very difficult for most of these families.
You see, in 2017, when Oxfam, together with its partners, developed the urban early warning action system. One of the issues that they wanted to address was the issue of forestalling, poverty and hunger, especially more in urban areas. And we have seen a situation whereby now with the coronavirus, a lot of people have been laid off from work. A lot of people cannot travel because of restrictions. And of course, this was not factored in when we were developing this system.
Yeah.
How is COVID likely to impact or to complicate your operations?
So the Urban Early Warning, Early Action System is a very excellent one. It's been developed in collaboration with the county government of Nairobi, with a few other partners as well. And the whole idea was, most of the time when shocks happen, the indicators are people who are dying, how many people are dying. So you only know when it's too late. So the early warning, early action is a way to make sure that we catch that early. So it's data-based. So you're tracking the food security at household, and then you can pick the triggers early so that there's early action to respond. So, for example, the Nairobi City Council already instituted some of the measures, for example, in Gorogosho, doing drip irrigation for greenhouses to increase the diets at household level. There was also collaboration between the Nairobi City Council and the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection on who are really vulnerable. And that data came through the Urban Early Warning, Early Action System. So the thing is the scale of COVID-19 overwhelmed the system. And I think for us as Oxfam, we feel strengthening the Urban Early Warning, Early Action System can provide a very good framework, for example, to guarantee the social assistance that the government is running and also other partners as well. So I know the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection are pushing for a single registry, and we are very supportive of that. All partners who are doing the social assistance, whether it's cash transfers or wherever, if they worked through the single registry, then we can be able to make sure that the Urban Early Warning, Early Action System really helps to provide that data to know who's vulnerable, pick them early, and make sure that we are supporting them early before they reach that stage where people are dying of hunger or the people are going into maladaptive measures, disposing of assets they had to cope with life, when we as a society, we can support them to cope.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, one may want to find out, why did you pick on Nairobi, for example? Bearing in mind that, Nairobi, by Kenyan standards, will not be considered to be such an extremely, poor county. We have poorer counties, counties like, Turkana, where poverty levels, are above the national average at about 70%.
So Oxfam is already working with the county government in Turkana, and we work through for example, the Kenya Cash Consortium in ASAL counties. We are working in seven counties with the county governments there, and we're also providing the cash transfers to households there. So there's as you say, there's huge vulnerability and huge poverty as well. And as I mentioned earlier, when you look at the impact of locusts, the impact of floods, and then COVID-19, so the ASAL areas are really equally vulnerable. What has never been realized is actually there's huge poverty in urban areas as well. And I think that's probably the message that we are trying to pass, and also why we came up with the Urban Early Warning, Early Action. When you go to informal settlements, the people who live in those informal settlements earn very little, mostly in informal sector. And so the impact of shocks like COVID-19 is very, very huge, because you close business immediately. You don't enjoy the labor rights of people in the formal sector, where you are given notice or job security. No, you wake up in the morning and you're told, oh, go home, there's no jobs today. So the amount of vulnerability in informal settlements is very, very huge. The other thing, when you look at the figures, the data we use is erroneous in its essence, because it looks at averages. And the tragedy of averages is, if you have wealthy people in Nairobi, they pull the averages up, but it ignores the inequality between the well-off and those who are very, very poor. So the majority of the poor who are vulnerable completely in urban areas are usually compensated for by the middle class and the rich people in Nairobi, because we are pulling those averages up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the inequality element is. And those of us in the development sector are now more focused on fighting inequality, because that's where the problem is. Because when you look at the absolute figures like GDP or average incomes, in Nairobi looks like very, very good. But then within Nairobi, especially in urban informal settlements, you have people who are living in very, very precarious economic situations.
There has always been this argument, which is absolutely very true, that Nairobi being the heartbeat of the nation, so whatever happens in Nairobi is exemplified, in other parts of the country. And if people in Nairobi, are going to bed hungry, I mean, how does this reflect, on the other parts of the country, for example?
The situation is dire. So 2 weeks ago, I was in Mombasa in Bangladesh. And equally, when you go to those communities, the communities telling you they've had to cope with the same situation. So across the country, in the urban informal settlements as well, there's very, very huge vulnerability. It's not only Nairobi. The hunger safety net program, for example, run through the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection is reaching many people, but there are plenty of people who are being left out from the social protection systems that are in place. And we think having that single register, for example, can reach out to many people just beyond Nairobi as well, in other towns in the country as well.
Yes. Dr. Kitui, I want you to hold it up there because we want now to go to the streets of Nairobi, where the BBI Secretariat, they are expected to present their signatures to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. There will be a procession, and our reporter Yeri is keeping tabs of what is happening there. Let's now go to the streets and get a reaction from there. Yeri, can you hear me? Yeah, there he goes. Kindly bring us to speed with what's the BBI Secretariat saying, what they plan to do, and what is the next step after the signature presentation to IEBC. What do we do next?
Million signatures to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission at their headquarters at Anniversary Towers. Remember that in the past 1 week, the Secretariat has been collecting signatures from Kenyans who are supporting the bill which was launched end last month by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his co-principal Raila Omolo Odinga, who is also they are also supporting the BBI. And I'm joined by nominated Senator Gertrude Musuruve to give us an insight of the process and what's next after today, when this Secretariat will be availing the signatures to IEBC. Karibu sana, Senator. Maybe tell us which is the next phase after today when the Secretariat will be availing the signatures.
Thank you very much. First of all, the fourth state for coming to cover us. And I want to say that at the Secretariat administratively, the Secretariat has been able to remove the signatures that did not meet the threshold. So we collected 5 million signatures, but now we are presenting 3 million signatures. Remember, we were looking for only 1 million, but we were able to get more than that. So that shows that on the ground, BBI is acceptable. So the next move now is to take to IEBC for verification. Once verification has been done, then it will go to the county assemblies, where we know and we believe that we are going to have the numbers. And then after the county assemblies, then we go to the Senate and the National Assembly, the Parliament. Then after that, we go to the referendum. And I want to tell Kenyans that change is okay. It's not always the case that when there's change, that change is bad. Our constitution is living, and I know that the issues that we want change, especially issues that deal with post-election violence, we wanted to come to a stop. And it is just okay for amendments to be done, because even after some years, some people will look at the constitution and see that there are amendments that also need to be done. The constitution is supposed to work for people. So when the changes in the constitution, Kenyans should be happy with this, because the changes in the constitution are going to ensure that the issues that are ailing Kenya are brought to a stop. It's going to ensure that women are in decision making. It's going to ensure everyone is in decision making and has a stake.
You said, Senator, there are some counties already which are saying that they need to do some amendments in the draft. What do you think about that? Yesterday, the court advised those counties to go to the Attorney General so that they can get an advice on that issue. Do you think County Assembly should have a chance to amend this draft?
Now, I have to say that whoever has an issue with IEBC, with this draft, is welcome to bring the thoughts that they have. But let the draft be completed, let the process come to an end, so that the main issues that ail Kenyans are addressed. Because even after some years, as I said, our constitution is a living being, and since it is living, there is room to make other changes as well. So most important, let this draft go through, let BBI go through, let us go to the referendum so that we are able to address issues that ail Kenya. After that, it is always okay to bring changes. They can be brought legislatively, they can be brought in any other way, but most important, let's have a referendum, let us address the core issues. The other core issues can still be addressed with time and legislatively. As I said, our constitution is a living being, and when it comes to change, it is inevitable. Even after some years, this draft will also be changed for the purpose of ensuring that it is serving Kenyans.
Thank you very much. I think now the live event is about to start. Mheshimiwa, thank you for your time very much for giving us this audience to tell us more about the BBI. And I will be coming back to you in studio, Obrien Kimani, as here now the live event is about to start in a few minutes, where the BBI co-chairman secretariat will be giving an insight and telling us how many signatures they will be availing to IEBC later today, where there will be a procession from this area to IEBC headquarters at Anniversary Town and Anniversary Towers along University Way. Back to you in studio, Obrien Kimani.
Well, that's Suleiman Yeri, our reporter. He's on that beat of BBI. They have finished the signature collection. Well, we don't know how many millions they have managed to gather so far. But that's the information that we'll be finding out from the Secretariat. They'll be having a procession on State House Road, actually. And so, if you can avoid that route, it will be of benefit to you, because you expect a lot of traffic jam along and around the routes around State House Road. And so I'm talking about, Cathedral Road, Nyerere Road as well. Processional Way, Kenyatta Avenue, Valley Road, and which other road is this? Yeah, basically that's all. If you can avoid those roads kindly do so, because you expect to see a lot of traffic jam because of the planned procession by the BBI Secretariat in their hundreds to present their signatures they have collected so far to the IEBC for verification. And then we'll be guided to know where the country or where the BBI train moves from here. That's what exactly we are tracking. And of course, another debate that we are having here is creating or putting up, sustainable urban early warning systems that deters poverty and hunger in the urban sector, in the urban areas. We are talking to John Kitui. He's the country director for Oxfam. He's helping us understand how, as a country, we can help to develop this kind of systems. And, before we went for that break or for that appraisal on BBI, I had asked you this question. If the situation is so bad, in the city of Nairobi, whereby the county, is very critical, not only in the socio-economic spheres of this country, but as well in the political life of this country. So how bad is the situation on the ground, especially in other counties? And I had picked, for example, the county of Turkana. But that's not the only case. There are 47 counties. So when you look and when you scan the ground and you do a SWOT analysis, what information do you gather from the ground?
I think the main information is that economically speaking, people are suffering. I think the COVID response has mainly focused on the health response, which validly so, because we need to contain the pandemic. But the other element of COVID-19 has been the economic impact at household level. So there's huge challenges at household level. People in the informal sector are suffering most. So, for example, when you look at even just women who are washing clothes as a means of livelihood, we're talking about household house helps in the houses who are let go because of the fear of bringing COVID-19 into those houses. You look at people like taxi drivers who are affected because of the inability to move people around. So many people who are self-employed do not have livelihoods. It's estimated that many of the businesses that have closed down, especially the small and medium-term enterprises, will not reopen completely. They've gone, and they've gone completely. So that's the amount of livelihoods, or the amount of households that will not have livelihoods post COVID-19 or within COVID-19 as we continue is huge. So social protection, I think, is a very key element as a society to strengthen, to cushion some of these households, and instruments like the urban early warning, early action instruments can really help to ensure that as a society we organize ourselves to support those of us in the society who are unable to cope with such shocks.
And so when you talk to the United Nations, they just released a report just the other day warning that between 250 million people to 500 million people are likely to slide back into poverty. And this means that they'll be having a lot of challenges, securing meals for their day-to-day living. And so how would these exacerbate an already bad situation?
Yes, so it's estimated about 200 million to 500 million worldwide may slide it back into poverty. So it will reverse all the efforts that have been made over the years to end poverty and to end inequality. The other element actually is to realize that there's a lot of people who are profiteering from COVID-19. So there'll be millionaires who also come out of COVID-19. So the whole element that inequality will increase, and the impact of inequality as well at household level is going to be very, very severe. So
how then, as a country, and a country called Kenya, that is still battling, various challenges, of economic as well as political and social issues. So how do we upscale our systems, in a bid to help even those who have not only been having these challenges, finding their daily meals, but also going to cater for the millions who are likely to join this bracket?
So there are two elements. The first one, I think there's a very huge focus now on economic development, and I'm talking about broader economic development that makes sure we bring everyone along, we don't leave anyone behind. The other element as well is to ensure that we have social protection systems that work. And part of the social protection is a social assistance that is key. So it's important to focus on both economic development and also social protection systems.
Good. We are discussing the issues around food security, hunger, as well as poverty mitigation measures. John Kitui is a country director for Oxfam. He's in the studio with us, helping us to break down these issues. You're watching BizCheck. We are live from Broadcasting House. We are taking a short break, and thereafter we'll be back with more stories, including the inauguration of Amboseli National Park.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more, like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys. Enjoy the magic of Christmas with Coca-Cola.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Kile tu najaribu kuambia ni karada. Si ati nakusikia.
Unanisikia?
Ninaendelea Sofia.
Nini?
Na budangu. Ninaendelea now please. Come straight na mimi.
At least kwa mapesti. You don't know me, because if you did, you would know that I have principles and no amount of money would make me ease up on them.
Your father is still calling shots from beyond the grave.
Why are we dragging my dad into this?
Read!
Your mother will soon be out.
Lily?
As soon as you and Pamela are a thing of the past.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
uzuiaji maambukizi ya virusi vya HIV kutoka kwa mama hadi mtoto ni miongoni mwa hatua ambazo serikali imechukua katika vita dhidi ya ukimwi hapa nchini. Je, ni yapi ambayo serikali imetekeleza kuafikia ufanisi huo?
Mpango wa Linda Mama umesaidia sana. Sasa hivi wanajua chenye tu unahitaji ni your identity card. So wakija na ile card wanajisajili bila malipo yoyote.
Tumeona wamama wengi wakikuja kupata watoto kwa hospitali.
Kitu yenye litupea moyo, tukaambiwa sasa na mtapata mtoto. Mkifuata haya maagizo, mtapata mtoto mwenye ako negative.
Next on.
But what if he says no?
What if who says no?
I raised you better than that, didn't I?
Did you really?
I think I'll leave now. Call me as soon as you get off work.
Give me that card. You won't be needing it. Let's talk.
You're clearly hiding something from me.
Like what?
Whatever, man.
I'm working for Nancy.
What?
Inufala sana.
Nufani na mali yangu ri. You are the only good example left in this family. And right now, I'm not sure of what to believe.
You have no right to judge me.
Unfortunately, I do, Pastor Mom.
I'm going to chunguza.
I'm your boss's wife, so that makes me your boss.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Of course. Kinaju is to blame for the world coming down. Kinaju is to blame for the recent floods. Blame me even for the potholes on the road. Blame me for your stupidity. Blame me even for you coming to grocery.
Wow, Julia. You mean you are shining in gold nowadays?
Look at this Dokon. Do you even listen to yourself before you speak?
Oh, please. We both know that I am a giver. Go spoil yourself, I know you need it.
Well, thank you. I am not giving you a cut, Farah.
If you are referring to Kinanzui, you should know Kinanzui is no longer the watchman.
They have found someone else. This one used to behave like he was the old school.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Welcome back. You're watching us from Broadcasting House, and of course, my name is Obrien Kimani. This morning, the discussion is around early warning, the development of early warning systems and how they can help, mitigate the impact of COVID-19, hunger, poverty, and other social ills. And this discussion, we're having it with the help of Dr. John Kitui. He's a country director for Oxfam. John, before we went for the break, the question was, how bad is the situation in other countries, and how do we as a country create systems, that will be helping us to deter this kind of challenges, as a nation?
So the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection has a very good program, the Inua Jamii program. So when you look at the Inua Jamii program, it has the Hunger Safety Net program. It also cash transfers to orphans and vulnerable children, cash transfers to people with severe disabilities, and cash transfers to older persons. I think for me that's a system that we need to support as partners to strengthen. For the Hunger Safety Net program, I think that's where now the tools like urban early warning, early action can be very, very useful. And many development partners, for example, the European Union, the German government, the Danish embassy, they've given to Kenya Council Consortium, the urban cash transfer program, about 8 million euros to go to urban settings. And that's complementing the government's Hunger Safety Net program, for example. In the ASAL areas, the 7 counties that Oxfam and other partners are working in, we have funding from ECHO, for example, from the European Union, and we're reaching in total about 250,000 people.
Yeah.
So that complements the system that already exists. And I think strengthening that government system, the single registry, all partners, I know the UN systems, civil society, the private sector, many other international non-governmental organizations have come together to pool resources. But there's need for more coordination and mainly through the government system. So if we strengthen the ministry's Inua Jamii program, scale up the hunger safety net, I think we can be able to reach as many people who are experiencing the hunger insecurity in the households in a very, very big way. So I think for me, the single registry is a very important one. The other element is the legislative framework to realize the right to food security. So our Constitution, Chapter 4, Article 43, demands that we should, no Kenyan should be food insecure. And I think we need a legislative framework to help that. So there's an act that was passed in 2013, the Social Assistance Act of 2013, that is being threatened by being repealed in 2020. I think for me that's a regression, because we can't move social assistance into the Ministry of Finance, because social assistance is more than just cash transfers. There's elements of prevention and promotion as well. So without an enabling legislative framework, it's very, very impossible to consolidate the gains that the Inua Jamii program has been able to secure. The other element that I think can play a very, very key role is the use of technology. So when you look at, we live in a digital age now, there's plenty of data that we can use, and the telecoms companies, the private sector, there's plenty of data out there that can be used to improve targeting, remove duplication, so that one person is not getting from multiple cash transfer programs, but make sure we are as inclusive as possible to broaden to the number of people who benefit from existing support. Very
well, and of course, you know, I want us to take a break, and then we'll be coming back. We'll be looking at, you know, some of the challenges, you know, this kind of initiatives has been going through. Now we want to take you to the BBI Secretariat, and Junet Mohammed is giving an update on the process. So let's first of all listen in.
CEO wa Secretariat hapa, Madam Sara Kilemi, tuko hapa na share lady wa Kewopa, Gadoni wa Mshomba mwenyewe iko hapa. Tuko hapa na pia na chairman mwenyewe, chairman ambaye amekuwa chairman ya maana mwaka hii mpaka hizi vitu imepatikana, Honorable Commander. Tuko hapa na women rep wetu wa hapa Nairobi County, Mheshimiwa Pasaris Esther yuko hapa. Tuko hapa na former coordinator in charge of coordinators, Mheshimiwa Weru. Tuko hapa na mtu wa nguvu wa ODM, chairman wa Nairobi ODM, Honorable Aladwa yuko hapa. Tuko hapa na Mwangi Francis kutoka Migori na Starehe hapa, ni rafiki yangu huko. Tuko hapa na Catherine. Tuko hapa na Shionga. Unajua senator, hii kitu kifungwa huwezi kujua, hata bibi yako huwezi kujua siku hizi. Senator Shinyonga. Tuko hapa na Senator Leni Kivuti kutoka Embu. Tuko hapa na pia Senator Msuruve Gertrude. Nani? Kantai. Tuko Kajiado. Very good. Nimefunga hii sikujua. Representing the people with disabilities. Tuko na hapa. Sasa hapa Tim Monyonyi pia iko hapa mheshimiwa. Sasa kabla sijapatia kocha yangu, tunataka kuonyesha ya kwamba kila kitu iko tayari. Bili yetu ndio hii ya kupeleka kwa IBC. Chama nishika namna hii. Bili iko hapa. Iko tayari. Tunataka kupeleka kwa IBC. Signatures pia ziko tayari. Imejaa kwa hizo buses mbili. Imejaa na signatures.
And it's the same one.
I think you have seen, it's the same bill. Umepata picha? Tutoe kofia eh?
Kidogo. Shika.
Hakuna koma wala full stop wala sikikoma, hakuna. Miongezwa vile iligondoliwa. Sawa? So kwa niaba ya viongozi, sisi tunataka kusema namna hii. Naweza patia nafasi Secretary General ya KANU aseme moja mbili, lakini sisi tuko tayari kwa hii safari. Tumejipanga. The train has left the station. And if you have been left behind, please take a taxi and catch the train in the next station. Catch up, please. You can take an Uber, you can take a Taxify, you can take something, you can take boda, take something. Take something that is motorized. Please catch us in the next stage if possible, because the train has left the station. Secondly, nimeona watu ambaye wanaongea mingi ambaye they are changing their position. People like Professor Kivuda Kibwana. Yeye vile nilisema jana tulitembea na yeye safari. Tulikuwa na yeye huko Kitui, yeye ndo alipeana hizo maoni ya huko Ukambani kama profesa na kama governor ya Makueni. Tukaenda na yeye paka Garissa. Tukaenda na yeye huko nafikiri Narok ama Mombasa tulikuwa na yeye. Kama umebadilisha maoni yako, waambia wananchi ya Kenya nimebadilisha maoni yangu. Usidanganye hawa ya kwamba hii process is legitimate, hii process iko na shida. Hii ni process ambayo wewe mwenyewe ulianzisha na ulikuwa na sisi pamoja. Na umechangia na maoni yako iko hapa ndani. So kama umebadilisha maoni yako, just be honest, tell Kenyans that I have changed my position. There is nothing wrong with that. But don't tell Kenyans that you have never been part and parcel of this process. Secondly, sisi hatutaki mtihani ya shule. Sisi tunataka tupeleke hii maoni mbele ya wananchi ya Kenya ili Wakenya waamue kama hii ni maoni ambayo walipeana ama sio maoni wamepeana. Na hakuna fujo, hii ni kitu ya siku moja tu. Mtu atatoka kwake nyumbani, ataenda apige kura, jioni arudi kwake nyumbani kama ameridhika, na either yes itashinda ama la itashinda. Na sisi hatugawi Kenya kwa njia ya yes ama no. Wale wamegawa nchi wanajulikana, ni wale wanasema hawa ni viongozi hasla, na wengine wanasema ni tajiri, dynasties and hustlers. Wale wanagawa nchi ni wale wanagawa nchi kwa hiyo njia. Lakini BBI inataka kuleta Wakenya yote pamoja, Kenya ikue kitu moja, nchi iendelee mbele ili tusikue na mvurutano kuelekea mbele. Na nimeamini ya kwamba Wakenya watapigia kura, watasupport document kwa sababu kuna manufaa mingi iko ndani ya hii document kwa wananchi ya Kenya. Kwa hiyo machache na mengi, tunaelekea safari ya IBC sasa. Wale walikuwa na shuku, the doubting Thomases, ambaye walikuwa nafikiri hii kitu haisongi, sasa leo mmeona tena, leo mzuri jua iko, sio siku ya mvua. Hadhara, jua iko wazi, tumelete hapa. Sasa sisi tumeanza safari tukiongozwa na President Uhuru Kenyatta na Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. Hii safari itafika paka mwisho na tutafika paka kwa.
Well, there you have it. One of the chairman of the BBI Secretariat, Suna East Member of Parliament, Junet Mohammed, there briefing the press on the journey to IEBC headquarters along University Way at the famous building of Anniversary Towers. This is where they're expected to present the collected signatures to IEBC for verification. And yesterday they announced to the world that so far they have managed to collect over 3 million signatures. This is well above the 1 million signatures that they were hoping to collect. And so now the next step is for the IEBC now to embark on the process of verifying those signatures to exactly find out their authenticity. And then from there, you can be guaranteed that the country is likely to go to the ballot boxes in a bid to choose whether to say yes to the new amendments or to say no. We'll be keeping you posted on what exactly is happening there. The journey starts from State House Road, the BBI Secretariat. It will take the turn on Kenyatta Avenue to Uhuru Highway, and then thereafter they'll branch towards University Way and make their presentation to IEBC. So you'd expect a lot of traffic jam along those routes, and so if possible try to get a different route to where you're going and avoid that expected snarl up from there. This is one of the stories that we are tracking for you and giving you live updates. Also, we expected to see the launch of the sustainable management initiative at the Amboseli National Park in Amboseli, where tourism CS Najib Balala is expected to lead that exercise. And of course, the domestic workers' welfare, they're expected to, or currently actually, they are having that briefing at Sarova Stanley Hotel, where they are raising some of the issues that they have been going through because of COVID-19 that has forced millions of people to work from home. And so this has somehow rendered some of them jobless. And so one of the issues they are raising is that the government should come up with a welfare system for them to cushion them against the harsh economic as well as social impact of COVID-19. Those are some of the issues that we are following up for you. And of course, in studio, we're having a great discussion here, also touching on COVID-19, poverty reduction, as well as hunger in urban areas, with Oxfam Country Director, Dr. John Kitui. Thank you, John. Let's keep on with our discussion. Let's continue. And one of the issues that we were discussing here before we went for the BBI briefing was, some of the safety nets, that the government has come up with, Inua Jamii and so much, where, poor families, receive a monthly stipend, to keep them going. There has been challenges of funding to this. And, sometimes back I was having a chat with the peers in charge of this docket. And one of the issues he was raising was, number one, lack of funding or lack of sufficient funding. And then the other thing was lack of data on who actually qualifies for this kind of stipend. And so how then do we deal with these two challenges?
First of all, is to say that they are false challenges. So when you look at the Inua Jamii program, in 2020, I think the last time I checked, it had disbursed about 13 billion Kenya shillings. 13 billion, that's very affordable to Kenya. In a whole year, when you look at the whole Inua Jamii program, it takes about 30 billion from the exchequer. That's money that we can afford. When you look at the money we want to invest, for example, in BBI, the money we lose through corruption. So there's a lot of money we can mobilize by just dealing with corruption and showing the seriousness we deserve as a country to fight corruption. That's one of them. There is a lot of money that Kenya loses through illicit financial flows. So this either through corruption out of the country, there's money that corporates don't pay because of capital tax or registering in tax havens in like Mauritius, because of things like the double taxation agreements we have with other tax havens that just make sure that we have a lot of illicit financial flows out of this country. If we can plug those leakages, we have enough resources to actually scale up the Inua Jamii program at scale. What we don't have is the political will. It's the political will. And I think the challenge is, how do we manufacture that political will? How do we make it a political choice to actually prioritize social protection? So Oxfam published recently the commitment.
So when you say that we don't have the political will, and bearing in mind that the government has created a whole department that looks into people who are going through this kind of challenges, with the whole PES. So would you say that, are you trying to say that this is more of a smokescreen?
It is smokescreen. You only show commitment with where you put your money. So the money has to go where the mouth is. So we are creating these institutions, but they are not sufficiently funded. So for example, when you look at the proposed social assistance fund regulations, they only allocate 2 billion Kenya shillings into that fund. When the transfers up to until July, August was 13 billion through the cash transfer program. So you're already underfunding it. You're removing it from the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection. You're putting it under the ministry, under the National Treasury. You're already removing from a very well-housed social protection household to a Ministry of Finance, when we know that social assistance is not just about grants transfers. There's more to the social protection as well. So I think the commitment should be the operationalization of the Social Assistance Act of 2013, as opposed to moving that the management of social assistance into the national treasury, for example, and then allocating more money. Why would you allocate 2 billion to such a very critical area in the midst of a crisis? So this is the time where the government should actually be showing more commitment by moving more funds going into some of the Inua Jamii programs, like the Healthy Safety Net program, and scaling up to include more people in urban areas across the country to make sure that people are able to cope with the COVID-19 crisis. And as I mentioned, we are likely to see the peak of COVID-19 maybe in June next year. We are not out of the woods yet. The transmissions are already going, especially when you look at the political activity around BBI, when you look at the 2022 elections, all these groupings and meetings, they are going to increase transmissions, and we are going to see the COVID-19 cases continue. This is the time not to abandon Kenyans and focus on other priorities. This is the time to put resources where they can make a difference, and that is in the social protection programs.
And one of the arguments, being floated in regard to domiciling the issues of safety nets, to the National Treasury, is because they are the managers and the collectors of planning. They're in charge of the national planning of this country. They're in charge of managing the National Treasury of this country, and so you have a situation whereby money flows from the national coffers, to, let's say, the Inua Jamii programs, without first of all going to other ministries. Do you think this kind of an argument holds water?
No, it doesn't hold water. So the National Treasury is an exchequer. It's supposed to make sure it's funding programs. So, for example, when you look at health, for example, there's a lot of expenditure that goes into health. It does not make sense then to move the budget management of health into the National Treasury. And the same applies. So when you look at social protection, when you look at orphans and vulnerable children, there are specialists who are specialists in that field who are housed in a different ministry. They should be resourced enough to make sure that happens as well. The cash transfers to old persons, the cash transfers to people living with severe disabilities, that needs to continue. The HSNPN, the Hunger Safety Net program, has to continue, I believe, within the proper ministry, with the technical expertise required to make sure we are targeting the right people, we are reducing duplication, for example. We are dealing with some of the inefficiencies, but there is a commitment from a cash flow perspective to these programs without necessarily taking that responsibility away from the respective ministries.
How do you think this is likely to augur well? Because the bill is already published. I mean, it is going through public deliberations. If it is enacted into law, the way it is now, how do you think this is likely to impact, the distribution of stipends to the deserving people?
So we know historically we've had a problem as a country on targeting based on poverty, and I think that's what the Social Assistance Fund tries to do. That you just mainly target people. So it would undermine some of the good work that has gone into investing, for example, in the urban early warning, early action systems, that we think actually the county government of Nairobi has a lot to share with other counties as well in terms of rolling out. So it reverses some of the gains that have been done to invest in systems to make sure that there's better targeting of people who really deserve. I think we're going to see a lot of people missed out who are really deserving. We're going to see elites, whether you are the wife of the village elder or you are the wife of the chief locally, being put on these lists as being targeted. So we are going to actually see people who are deserving drop out of the safety net programs, and people who are not deserving go onto it. Already we are suffering, we face the challenge of duplication, and we are trying to address that. We face the challenge of timing so that we are acting on time. So we are going to see those challenges multiplied in hundredfolds.
You see, because of coronavirus, I mean, even your organization, in Britain, it is saying that it will be forced to cut down on funding of some of the projects, more so especially in developing countries. And of course, they have mapped out about 13 countries where they plan to scale down the operations. Kenya, of course, is not one of them, but they're also saying that they're struggling with the issues of funding because a lot of donors, they have pulled off. How will these impact your operations if there is a scale down in terms of funding to Oxfam operations here in Kenya?
So I think when you look at the point you mentioned, I think when you look at many, especially European countries, that have been the main donors of development work in Africa, they are facing similar challenges like Kenya. And actually they are cutting down to invest more into their own social protection programs.
Yeah.
So for example, many developed countries are already doing cash transfers to people who are vulnerable, who've lost jobs in their own countries. They're even going to rescue plans for corporate. So there's a lot of resources that are going to be retained in Europe. As Oxfam, as a country program, I think we are adjusting to that reality. We'll try to mobilize resources from wherever we are. But I think the big picture here is, as Africa, we need to also realize that we have enough resources to meet our own needs on the continent if we can seal off the leakages that ensure that as a continent we lose resources, whether we are talking about that's corruption, as I mentioned, illicit financial flows, or even extractive industries. That's another area that we've not really maximized the value add of our own wealth. So if we can be able to create jobs locally by adding value to the raw commodities we export out of the continent, we are able to create enough resources on the continent to actually finance some of this social protection. The necessity of non-governmental organizations is because the government is actually not doing some of the work. So when you look at the service delivery, whether it's in health or in education or social protection, if the Inua Jamii program was scaled to scale and all resources channeled there from regardless of the sources, then there would be no need for actually non-governmental organizations to do some of the work that we does. As Oxfam, the other area we are really prioritizing is to support the local civil society to step up. Because I think the future is national civil societies taking that space very seriously, mainly from an accountability perspective. So holding, whether it's county governments or national governments to account, to make sure that the resources and the commitments of the Constitution, for example, on the Bill of Rights are realized. That burden of responsibility has to fall on national civil society organizations, and I think it's a very good opportunity currently for such to happen.
And I mean, for the last 50 years, of its existence, Oxfam, has implemented various, programs and projects, that are geared at, alleviating extreme poverty, not only here in Kenya, but in many parts of the country, parts of the world. They operate in 95 countries around the world. So, with the impact of COVID-19, likely to persist, and likely to ease, not less than 2 years, from now, this is likely to see significant drop in terms of funding going forward. How would these have a bearing on the ongoing projects and future projects?
So the COVID-19 has really strained resources for organizations like Oxfam, which is true, but I think we are also seeing increased global solidarity. So as much as the resources are going down, there are also other governments that are increasing their funding on development as well. In the UK, Oxfam is trying to push the government not to cut the commitment on aid from 0.7% to 0.5% as proposed, because it's going to have huge implications on development globally. So I think as Oxfam, we are advocating for the global solidarity to continue. So the commitments that developed countries made on official development aid being at 0.7% of their budget, this is the best time to actually advocate for that developed countries actually resource that. But as I mentioned, I think there's a huge responsibility for African countries mainly to focus on what can we do to raise resources locally. There's plenty, and I think I would interest you in some of the reports that have been published, for example, by the Tax Justice Network Africa on illicit financial flows of the continent. It's mind-boggling, the amount of resources that just leaks out of this continent outside. We do not actually need foreign aid. We do not need foreign direct investment, because we lose more money than we actually get as ODA. UNCTAD, the United Nations Program on Trade, have reported that actually we lose about $88.6 billion per year. When you look at the amount of money that comes from either official development aid or foreign direct investment, it comes to about $75 billion per year. So we already lose as a continent a lot of funds If we manage to plug some of those holes, then we would not really be scared about the reducing ODA or foreign direct investments because of COVID-19. And I think for me, that's what African countries need to work together. Maybe one last point. I think as African countries, I think I alluded to it as well, especially with the extractive industries, adding value on some of these things we export as raw commodities, whether it's tea from agriculture or extractive industries, also trading more with each other. So it's been shown that Africa only trades about 15% with each other. When you look at Asia, for example, it's 60%. You look at the US, about 50%. Africa, we only trade with each other 15%. And that's why our economies have been hugely impacted by COVID-19. If the future economic model focuses on African adding value on the continent, trading more with each other, then we are a very, very rich continent with poor people. That has to change. It has to be that wealth remains on the continent as opposed to expropriated to Asia and to Europe.
And I mean, what you're saying is very true. I mean, when you look at the amount of illicit financial flow out of Africa, you know, you're talking about almost 90 billion US dollars, you know, every year. And, you know, there has been concerted efforts, especially among, you know, some countries, you know, together with United Nations, with African Union to try and stop this. But we haven't seen, you know, much success around this area. So, are you foreseeing a situation whereby development partners, you know, will continue to cut down on their assistance to developing countries? And if that continues, what will become of systems, of projects, you know, like the system that you have put in place? Do we have inbuilt capacity as a country, you know, to maintain and sustain this kind of projects?
Yes, there is. So, for example, when you look at the Urban Early Warning, Early Action, it was done in collaboration with the county government of Nairobi. And actually, it's driven by the county government of Nairobi. And Oxfam and other organizations basically just provide the technical capacity. But now within the county government, there's a lot of capacity, not only to service Nairobi as a county, but also to scale it up, to strengthen it a little. With more funding, with more political will, I think that can happen. There's enough capacity to do that as well. With the cash transfers elsewhere as well, we are working really within the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection as well. We are completely in support of the single registry as well. We are looking at how we can partner with private sector in Kenya, whether it's telecommunications company, to better target and better reach some of these people. And all these digital solutions can actually strengthen the targeting done by the Inua Jamii program as itself. So to digitize, to move, to partner with private sector, the data. All this is local resources. The other thing is also the people who are actually running these are Kenyans. Most of the time when you come to Oxfam, most of the people who are running these things are Kenyans. And this is technical capacity that will not go out just because the funding is coming short. This is technical expertise that remains in country to support the sustainability of some of these initiatives.
Before I let you go, John, what lessons have you learned, you know, since the implementation of the early warning system that the national government, you know, can adopt? You pioneered this system, or you piloted this system with the county government of Nairobi back in the year 2007. What lessons have you learned that you think can be applied to the national government, you know, in developing this kind of a system?
I think it's, when it comes to shocks, waiting until you have indicators like number of people dying from hunger before you respond is already too late. We have the capacity to pick indicators early from food security surveillance, for example, and then respond early. And I think that saves lives, for example. When you let a child who's below 1 year to go malnourished, I think you've missed an opportunity. So we estimate that the 1,000, we know, it's not we estimate, we know that 1,000 days of a child are very, very crucial. Good nutrition in those 1,000 days is very critical to, even on GDP, for example, 8 to 10% impact on GDP in the long term because of the ability to benefit from schooling and everything else. So if you wait until you get children who are malnourished before you respond, it's already too late. So I think the challenge to the national government is we have systems that work, and the Urban Early Warning, Early Action is one of those systems. We need to invest more in it. We need to learn more from it. There's been publications on it as well. It's received awards already. There's very, very good lessons we can learn from it to make sure we pick crisis early before they become disastrous to individuals and households. The second thing is, I think, is a challenge for Kenyans to demand that the government shows more commitment to reducing inequality. So Oxfam has published a report on commitment to reducing inequality that ranks Kenya as 76 out of 158 countries, and it measures parameters across progressive investment in like health, education, and social protection, progressive tax regimes, and labor rights and fair wages. But it's 110 out of 158 when it comes to progressive expenditure. So, for example, social protection. It does very well on tax, 9 out of 158. Kenya does very well also on labor rights and fair wages at, I think it's a 105 out of 158. But we are at risk of losing that position of 76 out of 158 if we continue with the regressive tax regimes, taxing VAT more than we tax income. We should tax income more because it's progressive. If you earn 24,000, probably you don't need to be taxed. If you tax 10% of that, you are losing almost 2,400 shillings. If you earn 100,000 and you tax 10%, you still keep 90,000. So progressive tax regimes are better. If you tax VAT, whether you are rich or poor, you only take 2 spoonfuls of your sugar, isn't it? So a VAT on sugar makes sure that the poor actually pays more in tax than the rich person. So we should be taxing income as opposed to taxing VAT. So that progressive taxation is very, very key as well. And I think simple things like labor rights and fair wages. So people have to have a right of notice. You just don't wake up one day and fire people. So there are people who work in the informal sector. When COVID-19 happened and people went into lockdown, you just woke up and told no pay, no nothing, no compensation, no redundancy fee and everything else. So those are some of the things that actually drive inequality, especially for people who live in informal settlements or people who are in the informal sector, because they don't have the leeway to adjust, to move to a cheaper house or to move up country because you've been paid 1 month notice, which cushions most of the people in the informal sector. So there's a lot of things we can do, and I think for me the challenge is Kenyans needs to demand that the government shows seriousness in the commitment to reduce inequality, and I think the Oxfam's report is a very good starting point to just read and see some of those things that we think as Oxfam can help the government to reduce inequality, even as we focus on a more inclusive, broad-based economic development that tackle some of the challenges we've talked about.
John, thank you so very much indeed for joining us here and sharing your insights with us on this check.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Good morning, actually.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. John Kitui is the country director for Oxfam, joining us here to help us understand, since they started the implementation of the early warning sustainable system, to cushion urban dwellers against hunger and poverty, what they have achieved, and how can this be cascaded to the national government. And of course, you have had it. This is Biz Check. A lot is happening, including the presentation of BBI signatures to the IEBC. We are keeping tabs of that, plus more. And of course, we're also looking at the state of credit in the country in the midst of COVID-19. Stay right here. A short break is well deserved.
KBC, in collaboration with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, is broadcasting enhanced out-of-class learning on radio, television, and online. Catch the lessons every weekday on KBC Channel 1 from 2 to 4 p.m. on KBC English Service and 15 FM from 9:15 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Radio Taifa from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. KBC English Service, Radio Taifa, and 15 FM are also available countrywide on the free-to-air Signet digital TV platform, or log on to www.kbc.co.ke for live streaming, or download the KBC Online app on Google Play Store. Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, ensuring learning no matter what.
on the next episode of
Sweetie.
Baby wako nani? Hivi mwanaume tu unataka.
Huyu namtuma leso ampelekea mke wangu akamwambia ati ni yeye ndo amenunua na wala mke wangu asiniambie. Ni kweli?
Sudi. Wewe mwanamke niachane. Unasikia wewe? Unikome naambia mume wako. Mwakera. Ndio. Mkome tena mkome kabisa ni.
My baby replay playing my favorite tune. Oh yeah, cheza ready your love. Oh ready your love. My shaggy hata nafasi na sana yo baby my honey.
Tunakupa burudani.
Basta cheza shobaka yoko. Sayoko.
Na umbea, yani stories zinazo trend kwenye mitandao ya kijamii.
See baby now we are two in one. We are two in one.
Interview kali za wasanii wapendao.
Mguu upande panda milima. Aoye izungushie hapo ma. Kama una
Ndani ya March of Life kupitia KBC Channel 1 na Pwani FM.
Kuanzia mida ya saa 3 mpaka mida ya 5 kamili asubuhi. Ukiwa nami ni Teken 1GB.
Mimi ni Marco. Keep it locked.
Malewa. Roboto. Yeah. Isemeka wana kwa daddy.
Hakika ya mapenzi ya Mwenyezi Mungu yameambatanishwa na kumpenda Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Wale ambao wameamini kama wanampenda Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basi wamfuate Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
You're being tasked to headquarters, where you'll be riding the desk of an agent named Robert Hansen, considered our most knowledgeable analyst on Russian intel. You're going to keep an eye on him for us.
Tell me 5 things about yourself, 4 of them true.
I don't think I'd be much good at bluffing.
That would have counted as your lie.
I never cared about making headlines. Wanted to make history.
Why don't we just arrest him?
Can't do that. Director wants him caught in the act.
What if he's smarter than I am?
He spent the last 20 years outthinking Russian spies. He's smarter than all of us.
Gunda, I need to know if I can trust you!
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
This week on Wake Up and Make Up. And you know, dating is a whole new scene now because we have internet dating, we have blind dating. Is it uncomfortable?
And you do with all angles?
And it is that what makes scientists to think about obesity issue. Because obesity, it is now clear, it is not just sign.
Can you take it out and blow dry it and have a different style?
Actually, you can take it out and redo it, just like normal braids.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Uzuiaji maambukizi ya virusi vya HIV kutoka kwa mama hadi mtoto ni miongoni mwa hatua ambazo serikali imechukua katika vita dhidi ya ukimwi hapa nchini. Je, ni yapi ambayo serikali imetekeleza kuafikia ufanisi huo?
Mpango wa Linda Mama umesaidia sana. Sasa hivi wanajua chenye tu unahitaji ni your identity card. So wakija na ile kadi wanajisajili bila malipo yoyote.
Tumeona wamama wengi wakikuja kupata watoto kwa hospitali.
Kitu yenye ilitupea moyo, tukaambiwa sasa, na mtapata mtoto mkifuata haya maagizo, mtapata mtoto mwenye yako negative.
Welcome back. You're watching us live from Broadcasting House. Obrien Kimani is my name, and this is Base Check, where we are keeping tabs of different business happenings around the country, as well as our political intrigues. The BBI presentation of signatures to IBC is currently underway. The train, according to the owners of the project, has already kicked off or has left the station. It is on way to IBC headquarters along University Way here in Nairobi. It is necking its way through various roads from State House Road. And, of course, you'd expect that they should be getting to IBC any time from now. It's a huge procession, and so you would expect a little bit of gridlock around the areas that they'll be going through. And so our reporter, Suleiman Yeri, is keeping tabs of that train. He's updating us on who is on board and who has been left behind, and what they are doing to see whether they can jump on board. As of yesterday, according to the Secretariat, 3 million signatures have so far been collected. And so the process of verifying and authenticating those signatures is expected to start officially today at the IEBC headquarters. It's going to be such an exercise, definitely. And so we also be alerting you on where we go to next. And remember the floating bridge that has been under construction around or at the Likoni Channel. It's complete. It's supposed to be commissioned by President Uhuru Kenyatta. We'll be giving you an update once we get some from Mombasa, because our reporters are also there and trying to see what exactly is happening around the floating bridge. It's quite an interesting concept. And so we'll be opening your world to have a look at it, once we have that link. We have been discussing the issues around mitigating against poverty as well as urban hunger. And time now to shift gears and, of course, look at another subject. Credit in the pandemic, in the midst of a pandemic. If I can give you some heads up. Since the outbreak of coronavirus in Kenya, in the month of March, the government directed bank to or issued a moratorium on loan repayment. And according to the Central Bank of Kenya, close to 70% of borrowers tapped or enrolled for loan moratorium, whereby they were seeking for a renegotiation of their loan repayment period. This has somehow, of course, has triggered another impact on banks. When you look at their revenue from interest rate, it has somehow plunged by more than 70%. And of course, we expect them to continue urging the government to lift this. And of course, this was done, sometimes in November. So we are expecting to see banks, of course, embarking on an aggressive loan repayment campaign. Joining us in the studio this morning is the CEO of Jijenge Credit Limited. It's a non-deposit taking microfinance based here in Nairobi. They have been around for the last 7 years. And I was talking to the CEO. He was telling me that they have so far managed to give loans to the tune of around 500 million shillings. That's quite significant, bearing in mind that it's not a big microfinance. Let's get straight to him. Thank you very much indeed, Masharia, for finding time to be with us here. Paint for us a picture of how the credit market looks like and how you are coping with the current environment.
Thank you, Obrien, for inviting me to the studios today. And in a nutshell, the credit market within the Kenyan and African region is going through tough times, but most of the organizations and the partners that handle the credit protocols are up to the task. We as Jijenge Credit are also very resilient. And as we go through this turbulence, this is a time now that you pull all the skills, the knowledge, the expertise that you know to help navigate the organization to great heights and ensure that the decisions that are made are proper decisions and collections are done on time, and any challenge that customers face are mitigated on time before they can turn into what we call bad debts. Yes.
Since the first case of COVID-19 was reported in Kenya in March, how much have you managed to lend?
Thank you. Lending has been going on normally. However, and ordinarily what happens, as you know, most Kenyans don't save. So the lending the demand has been there. But as an organization that is well managed, we have a very elaborate and stringent credit analysis system that ensures that as much as people or borrowers might need money, we avoid lending to borrowers who don't even have a repayment plan. Because after March, so many things happened, like retrenchments were put into place. Most employers put their staff on half pay, or they even declared their staff redundant because of businesses that were closing, and all that, when put into place, automatically shifts demand for loans into a high gear. But the question is, how will you repay?
That's the question that you have been battling with.
Yeah, that's the question.
So what are your screening processes to ensure that you do not lock out, deserving loan cases?
Well, the screening process is quite elaborate and quite wide. But of course, the bottom line is you have to show proof that either you are still in employment, or even if you're in employment, are your terms still the same? Have they been varied? Have they been renegotiated? Because you'll bear me witness that most organizations, actually, they didn't sack their staff, but they came up with a work from home salary package that was lower than the previous package. So those we need to have systems, or rather we put it in place systems that enable us to go beyond that kind of contract, because the contracts were never redone. Mm-hmm. It was just a local arrangement that now we'll be working from home. Instead of you working for 30 days, come for 15 days. But that one also translates into half pay. So we've been having very detailed analysis to help us now repackage a facility that suits lower incomes.
But what we have learned with COVID-19 is that, having a job is not a guarantee that tomorrow you have a seamless flow of income. And if you interact with the data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, they will tell you that in the period between April this year and September this year, 1.7 million Kenyans have so far been left redundant and layoffs. So how then do you improve your screening processes, to capture the current scenario?
Thank you. What you've said is indeed a fact. Around 2 million Kenyans have been laid off. Actually, they are unemployment. And now, out of those 2 million Kenyans, of course, there are those ones who would like to borrow. But we've been working through with them, especially the ones who are running facilities with us. We've been telling them, now it's a time to think outside the box. Or rather, it's a time to think without the box. If you are relying on employment, and maybe you are a skilled baker, it's now a high time to now go to the basics. Use the skills that you have to generate some income. If you are a driver, can you look for driving work outside employment? If you have the cooking skills, you are able to make cakes. Can you make cakes at home and sell them within the estate? So it's a time to bring the innovation in Kenyans. And most of the customers we have and found themselves in those situations, we've been offering that service for free. It's a business consultancy service. And it has really worked. Because I have our portfolio, our main flagship product is loans against logbooks. And there are those customers who are repaying them with their salaries. Those loans against logbooks from income from employment. When they were retrenched and they came back to our office with those challenges, we told them now, this car can help you generate some other source of income. You can do Uber. You can go to the village or some farm and bring in vegetables. You might have seen some cars parking along the southern bypass or within the supermarket areas with vegetables at the boot of those cars. Some of those have been our customers, and we told them now it's a high time to think outside the box and survive. Because by the end of the day, you have a family to feed, you have a loan to repay, and life must continue.
That's very true.
Yes.
When the government issued a loan repayment moratorium, how many people did you see applying for this facility from Jijenge?
Well, we can say it's I can give a percentage of around 40% of the entire loan book, and actually it was higher than 40%. Let's say 60. But out of the 60, 20% of those applicants have been servicing their facilities normally. They just came to apply just as a stopgap, as a stopgap measure. Just in case they are hit by those financial challenges, they have a fallback. But now the other 40% were actually affected by those issues that we are discussing: job, employment losses, business closures, and of course there are some sectors that were heavily affected, like the hotel industry. So those are now that percentage, they fall under that category.
And even before COVID-19, Kenya, the banking industry in Kenya was battling with high rates of NPLs, or non-performing loans, which were almost hitting about 11.5 to 12%. And of course, the situation has become worse because of coronavirus. How has been the situation for you?
Thank you. At Jijenge, we've been having a very elaborate credit system. What I mean by that is that for a loan to turn bad, that means there are some gaps or gray areas that the lender didn't look at. But at Jijenge Credit, we ensure that we do a thorough credit appraisal system, which involves even at times, if you have a business, us visiting your business so that you can have a good site visit report.
But business can collapse.
It's true.
We have learned this from big companies like JC Penney.
It's true. That's a fact. However, you see, when a good analyst visits your business, he's able to do all those, we call it a SWOT analysis. He will tell you these are the threats and these are the opportunities. And if there are red flags for your business, he will give a feedback to the credit committee, and we shall advise the customer on how to navigate that. And then also, we will also be risk averse. If the client had borrowed $1 million, we will vary the amount. We will tell him, let's lend you. We will start small. You can give him 100,000 or 200,000. Then we observe the repayment history, and then from there we can give him a further facility to to boost up the business. Yes.
So have you seen an uptick in a default of loan repayment?
At Jijenge, the uptick, or rather the increase of bad debts has been yes, it's there, but it's not as high as we've been experiencing within our peers and.
If you were to assign a percentage, industry, that would be what?
We can give it around 15%.
15%.
Yes. The advantage of Jijenge Credit is my historical background. I've been in the banking industry for a cool 25 years. So that wealth of experience, that expertise, that knowledge really helps us to stabilize and foresee and manage those exposures. And that's why even our bad debt percentage is very low, because we identify those pointers way before things get out of hand, as opposed to
and
our competitors.
Is this factored in your loan loss provision?
Yes, we are within the loan loss provision as per the CBK rules. Yeah, we don't exceed. Yes.
And of this 15%, when you do an analysis of your loan book, of this 15%, which one is likely to be dead debt?
Well, we can't call it a dead debt, because out of that 15%, those are the industries or the sectors. It constitutes the industries and the sectors that were hard hit by the COVID. And our loan book concentrates on micro, small, and medium enterprises, and therefore
these are the risky borrowers.
Those are the risky borrowers. But that 15% constitutes, let's say, restaurants, hotels, those home pubs that are usually in estates. But we've been working them hand in hand and advising them to operate without the box. A good example are customers who are in those estate restaurants. We've told them to repackage their products, because the curfew times are actually, they close at 9, or let's say 10 latest. Now we've requested them to even start up new products like home deliveries, as opposed to waiting for customers in their restaurants, and they won't come because there's a government curfew. So those are the areas that we've been trying to tell them to be innovative and learn to survive, because by the end of the day, they will need to, January is around the corner, they will need school fees, they need to feed, they need to pay rent, and they need to service the facilities with us. So at Jijenge, we've really tried to walk through and support our customers fully, and therefore we don't have any debt.
Very well. Peter Macharia is the CEO of Jijenge Credit Limited, joining us here on Base Check to help us understand how the credit market has been impacted by the COVID-19 or the vagaries of COVID-19. The scourge that is devastating the global economy and, of course, distorting supply chains around the world and changing our social interaction habits. You've heard it from him. We are taking a short break. This is Base Check, whereby we are also keeping tabs of happenings around the country. And one of the events that we are tracking, apart from the BBI and the NSC, the meeting between Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior, this is Dr. Fred Matiang'i. He's meeting with NCIC officials in a bid to try and streamline the issue of around political remarks and creating a harmonious society in the country. Also remember, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy is in the country, and he is expected to accompany President Uhuru Kenyatta during the launch of the 1.9 billion shillings Likoni floating bridge in Mombasa. These are some of the issues that we are tracking for you right here on BizCheck. We are taking a break. Thereafter, we'll be back with more. Stay right here.
Ni mimi. Ulitoa pikipiki? Mlitani sitaomoka. Ni yako. Hii nduzi ni yangu. Niliwahi pale Quickbit. Quickbit? Quickbit imekuja kusaidia wananchi kama sisi. Nilinunua 399 shillings. Juu nilikuwa the lowest unique bidder. 399 shillings. Quickbit shilingi moja unaweza nunua pizza. Shilingi mbili unaweza nunua microwave. Shilingi tano unaweza nunua hata gari. So tupeleke huko hata mtu aende huko.
Jiunga na Quickbit ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbit.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. Quickbit, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Hey girl, hurry up. It's time for the ferry's departure.
We're going to kill you today.
Hey Lord, please protect Ashok, no matter where he is.
Somebody help me!
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Uzuiaji maambukizi ya virusi vya HIV kutoka kwa mama hadi mtoto ni miongoni mwa hatua ambazo serikali imechukua katika vita dhidi ya ukimwi hapa nchini. Je, ni yapi ambayo serikali imetekeleza kuafikia ufanisi huo?
Mpango wa Linda Mama umesaidia sana. Sasa hivi wanajua chenye tu unahitaji ni your identity card. So wakija na ile card wanajisajili bila malipo yoyote.
Tumeona wamama wengi wakikuja kupata watoto kwa hospitali.
Kitu yenye ilitupea moyo, tukaambiwa sasa, na mtapata mtoto mkifuata haya maagizo, mtapata mtoto mwenye ako negative.
Next on.
Hakika ya mapenzi ya Mwenyezi Mungu yameambatanishwa na kumpenda Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Wale ambao wameamini kama wanampenda Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basi wamfuate Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim.
On the next episode of
Sweetie.
Baby wako nani? Hivi mwanaume tu unataka.
Huyu namtuma leso ampelekea mke wangu akamwambia ati ni yeye ndo amenunua na wala mke wangu asiniambie. Ni kweli?
Wewe mwanamke niachane. Unasikia wewe? Unikome naambia mume wako. Mwakera. Ndio. Mkome tena mkome kabisa nyinyi.
Very well, welcome back. You're watching BizCheck, where we are, of course, appraising you on the latest happenings in the world of politics, economy, sports, as well as social scenes. Now we want to take you to Anniversary Towers, the IBC headquarters, where the BBI Secretariat is in the process of presenting their signatures to IBC Chair Wafula Chebukati. Let's listen in.
referendum committee, which will undertake the exercise of signature verification. But of course, we shall not commence until we get a budget and exchequer from the National Treasury. So that is one. Number two, and this for the purpose of the media and to avoid speculation, the Commission will be giving periodic updates on this particular process. So we shall alert you when we shall be giving those updates on the process. So please don't speculate on what is happening or what's not happening. We are available and information will be available to you. And thirdly and lastly, all this will be done within the Ministry of Health and the Commission protocols on COVID. So the signature verification exercise we have taken, we shall provide for that environment where the people will be working. We shall ensure their safety, but at the same time be able to deliver on that on the particular exercise. So thank you very much. We shall now proceed with the rest of the team. Mr. Masood here. You'll go upstairs and do the formalities. Okay, and also you saw we have been handed over the draft bill. We shall ensure that the bill which Kenyans signed for, the supporters signed for, is the same one as the one we have been handed over today before the exercise commences. The management team will work out a budget, and that will now form our next briefing. We shall tell you how much has been asked for. We have been told there are 4.2 million signatures, 4.4. So the exercise will commence after we are given the budget. We don't know how long that will take. So in our next briefing and on commencement, we shall be able to estimate and give you a timing on how long the exercise will take. Now, let me tell you this, and let's understand each other. This process has phases. The first phase now is to do signature verification. And so when we finish that, now we jump to the next phase, where the documents will go to the counties, okay? Then from there will be another phase where the bill will go to the National Assembly, to both houses. Then from there, the Commission will now be able to frame referendum questions, and lastly, then the referendum itself. So when we reach there, then we shall be able to tell you how much the Commission will require for purposes of carrying out the referendum. So it's a long process. It's a phase, and let's not jump from one stage to another. Yeah. Thank you very much. And from here, please, let's proceed upstairs. The promoters will sign a declaration form and other formalities to undertake that the signatures have been properly and collected, and then we shall give you our next date of the briefing. And thank you, media, for coming.
No.
Thank you very much.
Can we, please, in the interest of COVID, we are going to go up only with the promoters and the secretariat. Wengine tafadhali tungoje hapo kwa sababu ya corona. Bwana Mredhi, wewe sasa ingia siasa kama unataka kujua mambo ya hiyo.
Asante. Naomba tu niwakumbushe ukiwa hapa, please keep social distance and make sure your mask is up. Most kindly. Ikiwa hauna shughuli, unaombwa kwa unyenyekevu uweze kuondoka ili tupeane nafasi ya kutosha hapa. Asante. DJ. Na wale wanaoleta stakabadhi hizo.
Well, the BBI Secretariat there, they have just presented their signatures to IBC Chair Wafula Chebukati, and now they are proceeding to the Anniversary Towers offices for a handing over of those signatures. whereby the representatives of the Secretariat are expected to sign some documents with IEBC. Wafula Chebukati, the chair there of IEBC, is saying that the next process will be the verification exercise. He's not very sure how long it will take, but according to him, it's going to be a thorough exercise whereby there will be no room left for speculation or for error. We are keeping our eyes on the anniversary towers to see what else comes out of that meeting between the BBI Secretariat and the IEBC. We're also keeping tabs of what's happening in the coastal city of Mombasa, where President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Ethiopian counterpart, Abiy Ahmed, they're expected to launch the 1.9 billion shillings floating Likoni floating bridge around the busy Likoni crossing channel, which is expected to ease, communication between North Coast and South Coast. We are also trying to figure out what time the two leaders are expected to arrive there. And of course, once we get that signal, we'll definitely take you to the coastal city of Mombasa. I can see time is well spent because it's almost coming to 11 o'clock. And let's now wind up, the discussion that we've been having here on access to credit during the COVID-19 scourge. We've been having this discussion with Peter Macharia, the CEO of Jijenge Credit Limited. And one of the issues that we've been trying to unravel is how loan repayment has been impacted by the virus. Macharia, you were talking about, having put in place, proper screening mechanisms, to ensure that only deserving cases, are given loans. But the question that has also emerged is that, businesses have closed down, people have lost their jobs, others have lost their only source of livelihoods. This was not because of their mistakes. This is because of a pandemic, that has battered the global economy. How are you likely to insulate yourself, against such going into the future?
Thank you, Obrien. Well, as I've said earlier, we have tried to be very, very interactive, and we have also enhanced our relationship management, credit relationship management, so that we understand our customers fully. We have also procured a software that helps us understand and analyze client statements and details and M-Pesa statements within 2 minutes, so that we're able to understand how much of your income is able to facilitate, is available for loan repayments, and whether you have the potential of being a high-risk client or a low-risk client. And therefore, we're also embracing technology, because just mere site visits, mere discussions with the customer might not yield as much. So we are embracing technology so that we are able to really analyze and get the true picture of a client. This is because we get customers from as far as Wajir or Mandera or, let's say, Kisumu or Nyanza region. That person, that short moment you're seeing that customer at the counter or being served cannot help us to fully understand the financial capability, the financial ability, and also the debt to... there are issues that we use. A good example is the debt to burden ratios and all that. So we really try to really understand wholesomely, 360-degree understanding of that customer's financial ability.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, for those people who have been laid off, whose businesses, have been forced to close down because of COVID-19, and, they had facilities with you, how are you dealing with these cases?
As I said earlier, at Jijenge Credit, once you walk to offices and say, you've closed your business or you've been laid off. That's where now the strategy of working without the box comes in. Because now we also offer free consultancy, business consultancy services to those customers. That's where now we ask you, do you have any skill? Where you are employed, what are you actually doing? Now that skill is what now we request the customer, or we advise the customer to utilize it outside. We even give them 6 months or 1 year moratorium so that they can reorganize themselves. They can set up, if that person was a chef at a certain hotel, they can now buy those appliances for baking cakes or maybe doing the sausages, or just something that will start generating some income, and it is less. It will require less knowledge, less training, because it is a skill set that he already has. And once the business picks up, he's now able to come back and pay us back.
So that's what you are doing.
That's what we are doing.
And how many of this kind of clients have you managed to handle?
We have around, in our entire loan book, we have around 5%. 5%. 5% who've been totally laid off. They wake up, they don't know where to go. Now we try to take them through, incubate them so that they can set up. It's a pure startup. They are starting from scratch.
They're starting from scratch.
They set up the business, and gradually, the little that they're able to spare and repair the facility, it starts trickling in.
And have you at some point been forced to, seize properties and credit guarantee in a bid to offset your loans?
Yes, for sure that one does happen, but we do it as a last resort. Yeah. Because the aim of lending is not to seize someone's property.
Yeah.
And before we even think of seizing, we repackage, we extend the repayments, we actually don't seize. We request the client to look for a place or look for buyers through a process we call private treaty, so they can sell the property on our behalf and bring the cash and pay off the facility. Then the rest of the cash, they can use it to either start up a new business or save it for another day.
Save it for another day.
Yes.
Very well. Thank you very much indeed, Macharia, for finding time to be with us this afternoon now. And of course for sharing those insights with us. We look forward for having this kind of engagement again with you in the future.
Yes, thank you.
Asante sana.
Yeah,
well, you have been watching BizCheck, live from Broadcasting House, whereby we've been crisscrossing the country, in a bid to bring you up to speed with what's happening in different fields of the economy. And one of the issues that has featured prominently on this bulletin is the handing over of signatures by BBI Secretariat to IEBC at Anniversary Towers. The process has just begun according to, or is expected to begin according to IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati, of authenticating those signatures as presented by the BBI Secretariat. And according to the Secretariat, about 3 million signatures have so far been collected against a target of 1 million signatures. And so we'll be looking into more details around that. And of course, I've been telling you that Ethiopian Prime Minister and President Uhuru Kenyatta are in the coastal city of Mombasa, where they are expected to inspect and commission the 1.9 billion shillings Likoni floating bridge. Is the first of its kind in the region, and the second, if I'm not wrong, in the African continent. It is being projected, it is being said that this is likely to be the first of its kind in terms of engineering technology this side of the world. We'll be giving you a peek into that. My name is Obrien Kimani. Thank you for your time. Tamarini is coming up next with Gladys. Stay right here.
mulitani sitaomoka. Ni yako. Hii nduzi ni yangu. Niliwahi pale Quickbit. Quickbit imekuja kusaidia wananchi kama sisi. Nilinunua 399 shillings juu nilikuwa the lowest unique bidder.
399 shillings.
Quickbit shilingi moja unaweza nunua shilingi 2 unaweza nunua micro. Shilingi 5 unaweza nunua hata gari.
So tupeleke huko hata
mtu aendi huko.
Jiunga na Quickbit ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbit.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio ununua. Quickbit, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Hey girl, hurry up. It's time for the ferry's departure.
We're going to kill you today.
Hey Lord, please protect Ashok, no matter where he is.
Somebody help me!
Next on.
Hakika ya mapenzi ya Mwenyezi Mungu yameambatanishwa na kumpenda Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Wale ambao wameamini kama wanampenda Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basi wamfuate Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim.
Next on.
But what if he says no?
What if who says no?
I raised you better than that, didn't I?
Did you really?
Think I'll leave now. Call me as soon as you get off work.
Give me that card. You won't be needing it. Let's talk.
You're clearly hiding something from me.
Like what?
Whatever, man.
I'm working for Nancy.
What?
Inufala sana.
Nufani na mali yangu ri. You are the only good example left in this family. And right now, I'm not sure of what to believe.
You have no right to judge me.
Unfortunately, I do, Pastor Mom.
Ambona unanichunguza?
I'm your boss's wife, so that makes me your boss.
A love from the past will mark the love from today.
I love you, Mauro. I love you like I have never loved before.
Now the same obsession that ruined the past will try to destroy the present. Only this time, love will have more than one obstacle ahead.
I need a doctor to tend to her right away.